Let's begin the conversations at the WEF with Stuart Eizenstat. He's a former deputy secretary of the Treasury, under President Clinton. He's a former ambassador to the EU and a longtime observer, an insider, you might say, in Washington, who has spent many years participating in and watching the World Economic Forum. Stuart, great of you to be here on a Tuesday. Things are going to get kicking off officially here at the WEF tomorrow. And before that happens, we're going to be hearing from the President Obama, delivering his State of the Union back in Washington. It's going to be closely watched here in Davos because so many world leaders are gathering. Tell us what you think the president needs to do, both in terms of striking a tone that's going to encourage the American people and at the same time laying out an agenda that is going to inspire or engender confidence among his fellow global leaders here at the WEF.
Well, clearly his tone is going to follow what's happened since the disastrous midterm elections for the Democrats, namely a move to the center, a reach for bipartisanship to the Republicans, which paid off great dividends in the post-election session with an agreement on the Bush tax cuts and on the START treaty. And I think that's the tone you're going to see, that he's going to reach out to the new Republican majority in the House, to the increased number of Republicans in the Senate, and ask for bipartisan cooperation. On substance, I think he's going to look for separating himself from the Republicans, who are looking for across-the-board cuts on all domestic discretionary programs. And he's going to say, yes, we need to cut. I want to work with you to cut the deficit. But there are certain investments we need to make in infrastructure and education to be competitive. So his number one issue is going to be competitiveness in the world and jobs at home.
How do you think that's going to resonate with the audience here?
I think it'll resonate well, but there is one exception I'm concerned about, and that is, I would hope, but I think I'm prepared to be somewhat disappointed about this, that he would have embraced the proposal of his own bipartisan deficit reduction commission, the so-called Simpson-Bowles Commission, which proposed very significant reductions in our major entitlement programs like Social Security and Medicare, and a thoroughgoing tax reform, lowering rates by closing loopholes. I think he's not going to embrace that to a great degree because of the political sensitivity, and I think it will be a potentially lost opportunity.
Stuart, one thing you have to keep in mind when you consider what the State of the Union is going to mean, especially in a place like this, is America's standing in the world. Given what happened to the American economy during the financial crisis, just how much power does the United States wield at an event like the World Economic Forum anymore?
Well, I think the U.S. is still the principal power in the world, but the question is it sustaining its leadership? And clearly there's a close in the gap between not just the U.S. and China, but the U.S. and India and the emerging markets in Brazil and elsewhere. But we're starting to come back. We're going to have, I think, a decent and perhaps quite good 2011, perhaps 3% growth, maybe even more. Our unemployment rate will take time to get back to pre-recession levels, but we're on the move, and so there'll be a sense of more momentum. In addition, the president's own popularity at home, which has risen substantially, will translate into more influence here in Davos. Clearly, the world is changing. There is a new world order, but militarily, politically, diplomatically, economically, this still is the principal power in the world, and everyone knows that, even though the gap has been narrowed.
Very briefly, Stuart, because we only have about 30 seconds, shared norms, that's supposed to be the theme for the World Economic Forum. What does that mean to you?
Well, to me, it means living by a global set of norms, meaning trade norms, investment norms, and norms in terms of social accountability and solving problems through diplomatic means. And I think one of the real concerns with China is that they're not sharing all those norms. They're having a mercantilist policy. There are heavy subsidies from state-owned enterprises, locking up contracts, technology transfer requirements for investing there. These are the kinds of shared norms that we don't yet have, but we need to move toward to have more global governance.
Well, we know that those issues concerning China are going to be front and center here at the World Economic Forum. Stuart, thanks very much. That was Stuart Eizenstat. He's a partner at Covington Burling, former Deputy Secretary of the Treasury under President Clinton here in Davos, Switzerland.